This is Bobby Christian here in Human Resources Development. Our assignment is to talk about how management can talk about motivation for employees. I've got about 8 slides here that talks about my outline of what we would talk about for a few hours with management. So without further ado, we're going to talk about the first slide, the learning objectives. Where are our employees most motivated? Where are our employees least motivated? Do we have a high performance work system in place? Are we constantly meeting what employees like the most? What ideas can management introduce to make workers more motivated? And maybe what are the top 3 demotivators, and have those 3 always stay the same? Motivation in the workforce is a huge issue for most employees because most employees aren't motivated by just a paycheck. So I thought that we would probably spend a majority of the time talking about this slide with management, probably 15 to 20 minutes at least, about what kind of data do we have about what employees are doing with motivation, what do they like, what they don't like. So here are some of the categories concerned with that, like I already went through, so I'm going to go to the next slide. The delivery modes or methods. How are we going to compile this data? A lot of employers use like a SurveyMonkey or some kind of online survey to ask employees certain questions. That's kind of the most popular about what motivates them and what doesn't. Some great things to ask, unfortunately, are the exit interviews. When employees are leaving an organization, if the employer decides to ask those questions and if the employee decides to give that feedback, it's honest feedback, and we should take a look at that about what motivates employees at that company and what doesn't. Usually you can do motivators with online surveys. Kind of outdated but still important would be in-person, telephone, and email. If HR is getting a phone call from somebody, or maybe even an email, or in-person questions about certain things, we should definitely bring that up in the meeting, or actually with the data. The third thing would be the budget. I don't know about the state of Missouri who I work for, but is there a budget in place to talk about motivation and things of that nature? Do we have an existing budget in place to address this motivation? If so, how much are the costs associated with this? Do these costs fluctuate? Is there room in the budget to deliver or keep this in the budget is another question we want to ask the management. Probably the question that I think is the most important as far as budget, besides money, is concerned, is what are the actual monetary answers to this, and what are the non-monetary benefits? When people are unmotivated, how does that affect their performance and maybe other performance, because that can be a non-monetary thing. Obviously, how does it affect the company as a whole with money? So, budgets, a good place to go from, and then we'll go to delivery style. I believe that this will be the easiest one to talk about, because I believe it'd be a mixed approach about how we can talk about motivation. When I say mixed approach, the chapter talked about the vestibule style meeting, initially asking everybody to come under kind of one roof, all the management, and discuss ideas and this kind of thing. For the follow-up, after we've determined what we will do to capture data about motivation, is to maybe package the data in an online result, maybe with video, graphs, PowerPoint, to show the data that's collected, and then distribute that out to management via SharePoint, email, whatever forms of communication that we decide. The next one is the audience. I assume that primarily non-managed employees will be the audience that we're trying to engage, but we should probably ask management, what are we as a company doing to motivate management? Is it past the paycheck? Is it the perks? Is it other things that we can discuss? If we all participate, will it uncover some areas that we've not talked about before? If we just focus on non-management employees, maybe there's some underlying issues that management hasn't addressed yet. And like I said, do we target those whom we've identified as maybe lacking motivation, like maybe harbor it a little bit toward them, maybe ask them additional questions that we normally wouldn't ask those who are already motivated. Timeline. is there a timeline that we can agree upon to collect the data, thoughts, and ideas? Personally, I know that since I've been a state of Missouri employee for 7 years, we have an online survey that we do. We actually do it quarterly. So we need to decide on a timeline. Should we do it yearly? Should we do it quarterly? Should we do it monthly? I think yearly is probably not enough. Monthly might be overkill. I actually probably agree with the state of Missouri about quarterly. It gives us some, it gives a little bit of time not to feel too rushed or not enough, if that makes sense. So we'll decide on a timeline and kind of go from there. Communication. This almost mirrors slide 2 about delivery mode. How do we encourage employees to provide feedback? Most everybody has gone to the online format. Telephone's probably kind of outdated in person, but I still think if you're trying to capture all data, or the most data, then you'll kind of have a mixture. Online probably being the biggest one, but if you're in HR, you want to capture any type of telephone communication about motivation, in person, and even email, which would kind of include online. So I believe we're going to wrap this up with evaluation and measurement. After we receive the feedback, what do we do with the data? I assume that management is trying to pull this data to see where motivators exist, where they don't, and how can we improve upon the things that we're doing well. Do we need to revamp things we're not doing well, or put those into place, period? This would be a great time to also gauge any ideas presented that may have strengthened or lowered the score from the last benchmark or last feedback. So that kind of goes back to the quarterly. You'll see what's going on and what's not. So that wraps up kind of where my headspace is at with this 2-hour meeting. Thank you so much and have a great evening.